So, the internet. A word we use to describe a wide variety of things that we can access that's not stored on our local machines. This can refer to applications, websites, games, devices, all sorts of stuff that falls under the umbrella of the internet. But probably the biggest chunk, I would argue, of what we mean when we start talking about the internet are websites. Now, websites can take a variety of forms. They could be digital storefronts like My Mini Factory, where you have many different creators, or possibly just a creator, if it is a company-specific website, that puts their goods up for sale, facilitated through a web page, whether those goods be digital or physical. It could be an application, commonly what is referred to as Web 2.0, where they were thinking that the internet was going to go online and have all of our applications be through a website. In this particular instance, it's Campfire, which is used to help write and organize fictional stories. A website could be largely informative in nature. Wikipedia's sole goal is to store and display information, primarily text information, though obviously images are included. It could be something extremely simple, like an old ancient fan site describing an even more old and ancient tool, such as the Sword of Moonlight. Once upon a time, there were also horrifying abominations against all that is good and proper in this world, also known as GeoCities. Be thankful that you most likely did not have to live through this era. The websites were something else during this time. Now, all of these websites use programming in a different way. My Mini Factory uses it to both randomize the featured creators. If I refresh the site, it changes, and it also periodically changes on its own without me doing anything. Campfire uses programming to do things like allowing me to add a text panel, move said text panel around, and remove it. Wikipedia uses programming to give you these neat little pop-up previews when I mouse over a link that leads to another Wikipedia article. And then sometimes it just doesn't use programming at all. There's nothing dynamic about this particular ancient website. It's just links, some of which don't even really work anymore. But regardless of the programming and how the specific website uses programming to enable its dynamicism, all of these websites have something in common, an underpinning uniform tech that links them all together. And that is HTML and CSS. If I hit F12 to go into debug mode, I can see that My Mini Factory is an HTML page, and I can also tell just by looking at it that it's using CSS to style it. Campfire, if I hit F12, is an HTML document that uses CSS to style it. Wikipedia is an HTML document that uses CSS to style it. Sword of Moonlight is an HTML document that still technically uses CSS to style it, even if it is extremely simple CSS. The less said about GeoCity web page layouts, the better. The point here is that despite all of these websites being drastically different in terms of their functionality and how they display their information to the user, they all have this underpinning similarity between them. They use the HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So they use HTML to define what the information is on the website. And then they use CSS, or Cascading Style Sheets, to control how that information is presented on the website. And that is where we're going to start in this course. We're going to start off by looking at the HTML specification and how do we write properly formatted HTML documents. We are then going to go into CSS, which is responsible for things like drop-down menus and sidebars in websites. All of this can be done without scripting. And then after we have a solid understanding of HTML and CSS, we'll start bringing in JavaScript to add in the dynamics, such as when you mouse over a link, you get a little pop-up box showing you additional information. Towards the very end of the class, we will take a look at something called jQuery. Now you might think that's a little backwards, given that jQuery is in the title of the course. Unfortunately, as is the case with many things technology, and especially with things web-based, tech moves really gosh darn fast. jQuery really isn't very commonly used anymore. We still need to cover it because it still is used, and if you have to support a legacy website, there's every chance that you will have to use jQuery or interact with jQuery code. But for the most part, it's kind of on its way out for a variety of reasons. And we'll get into those a little bit later. We will definitely still cover it, though. It's in the course description, so we will be covering jQuery. Just our focus is going to be on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript because you need to understand those three things to even begin to use jQuery. So that is where the focus of the course is going to be. Now, your final project for this course is going to be to create a website that showcases a hobby or special interest that you happen to have, regardless of what that may be. Now, before we can really start trying to design a website, in addition to needing to learn the code behind them, we need to start thinking about what it is about layouts that you like and don't like. What websites do you know of that you really like the layout of, and which websites do you know of that you despise the layout of, or at least have some issues with? And that is going to be your first assignment. You need to find two websites, any two websites, one of which you generally like the layout of, and one of which you generally don't like the layout of or you have problems with. You will then need to tell me about these two websites, what is the website about, and what it is that you like or dislike about the website. Just need a small little paragraph, in the 3-ish, 4-ish sentence range of information. Not looking for, 2-page essays here. But just a quick little blurb about what's the website about, what do you like about it, or what do you don't like about it. Also, remember that you need to associate your GitHub account with the GitHub Classroom. So make sure you get that accomplished as well, and do your reading assignments from W3 Schools, because next week we're going to get into actually starting to write HTML pages. Good luck with the assignment, and I look forward to seeing what kind of interesting websites you all bring to my attention.